Over the last 2 weeks, I've been chewing through the data from League Classic. Firstly, let's just throw out the summoner spells. So you got things like Fortify coming back. We got a bunch of tooltips to go through, items, and even some rewards. Everything that's going to be presented will be all data mined based on these 2-week-old files, so some numbers might not be final, but a lot of it lines up with ability data and stats based on very old patches, so hopefully it shouldn't change too much. As I mentioned in the last video, there's going to be an account leveling system from 1 to 30, and that's going to sort of be treated like a mini pass, sort of like ARAM Mayhem. All the rewards from account leveling are free. Some key information regarding that is at level 3 you will unlock Masteries. I don't know if it'll be like the old system though, where you get a point per level, or if you'll just get it entirely at level 3. At level 4 you should unlock mark slots. At level 6, seals. And level 7, glyphs. No idea about quints. Other rewards from the leveling system include things like random runes, classic skin tokens, influence points, voting power, which seems it's to vote on what champion comes to League Classic next. However, the big one is, if you hit level 30, you receive Rusty Blitzcrank for free. Good time to pivot onto skins. I have zero idea how you get any of them. Considering you get Rusty Blitzcrank for free, I assume Rustier and Rustiest Blitzcrank will be based on how old your Rusty Blitzcrank is if you already own it. There's the 3 founder skins, Black Alistair, Goth Annie, Silver Kale. Then there is also Baron Rammus, which is an alternative version of King Rammus. Again, no idea how you acquire any of these. That data is just flat out not in the files. As for items, here are all the items that should be part of League Classic. I am so sorry if any of the tooltips are a bit lackluster or missing data. I did rush generate these. Put all my time and effort into the champion tooltips that are coming up. But with items, there's a few fan favorites coming back, and also it's great to see a tribute to Shushay. So with champions, there's going to be 60 at launch. There should be more to come. Riot have updated their website as a teaser, and we can see if you go to Maokai and click on his ultimate, he has the old ultimate. As for Zed, only his passive video was updated, which he has the old model. Medler has teased on his Twitter that Urgot is one of his favorites that he can't wait to see and try. There was also references to Graves, LeBlanc splash art from the teaser, so there's quite a few champions that aren't in the initial batch that should come later. We don't really know any sort of release timings. And if there's a random jump cut here, that means Riot have announced it at MSI because I'm doing this the day before. Well, the only confirmation we got is it's coming July 29th. And thanks to Tencent, we know Mordekaiser, Aurelia, Akali, Caitlyn, and Fiora are coming back in a future patch. And if we look at the files, specifically the UI files, we can see they added some UI elements for Bloodwell. But let's go through the 60 we do know and have full abilities for. And again, this is early build data. Balance changes can and do happen, so numbers may not be final. In the game files, there was a short bio of what's the difference between live and classic, so I'm going to read that bit out. Ari, Q grants movement speed when the orb is in the air. Passive is stacked on damaging enemies, and ultimate does not reset. Alistair, passive, and E have been swapped. He can build ability power and solo lane. Amumu, his Q does not have extra charges, and his passive reduces magic resist on basic attacks only. Anivia, her E doesn't have the chill passive, and her ultimate actually slows attack speed. Annie, Tibbers dies when Annie does, passive stacks reset on death, and her E doesn't grant movement speed. Ashe, her Q is a toggle which adds slows to basic attacks, her passive builds up critical strikes out of combat, and her E grants bonus gold on kill. Blitzcrank, his ultimate passively zaps nearby enemies. Brand, his passive doesn't have the explosion effect anymore. Cho'Gath, his ultimate stacks a max of 6 times, he loses half the stacks on death, but he can stack them on anything, and his E is a toggle. Corki, his Q is an instant explosion. Mundo, his W is a toggle that deals AoE damage around him, E is a buff for a certain period of time, not a singular attack, and his passive regenerates health over time. Evelyn, now this is what Riot wrote. Fighter, not assassin. The abilities are completely different. Just read the descriptions. Ezreal W passes through all units, deals damage and slows enemies' attack speeds, heals and gives attack speed to allies, and his ultimate deals less damage per enemy hit. Fiddlesticks. Important thing, his fear makes enemies walk randomly, not away from you. Crowstorm is the same, but the rest of his abilities are a bit different. Gangplank. Ultimate has random cannonballs instead of consistent AoE damage. Raise morale grants move speed and attack speed both passively and upon activation. Parlay grants gold, and there's no more silver serpents. Garen, his ultimate does magic damage. Gragas, his Q now does full damage regardless of how long it's on the ground for, and his W lasts for a long time. Heimerdinger, the abilities may look similar but are very different. Upgrade is now a buff that lasts a set time, not a single ability. His turrets are also active globally but die when Heimerdinger dies. Janna, her Tailwind passive grants global move speed. Jarvan, his ultimate now does single target damage, not AoE damage, and his E passive grants armor. Jax, his ultimate grants attack speed per strike, and his passive grants health for power. Karthus, Wright has written, the dead never change. Kassadin, his E requires 6 casts around him to be able to cast it. His ultimate can stack 10 times, and his passive transforms some magic damage prevented into attack speed. Katarina, the version that everyone seems to hate. Her W enhances her other abilities, and her passive grants gold and reduces cooldown on kill. Kayle, leveling up, no longer changes her attacks. Her passive grants attack damage and ability power. Her W is pretty much the only thing that hasn't changed. Kog'Maw, his Q is now point and click. Lee Sin, nothing can upset his balance apparently. As for Leona, in a human life, the sun never changes, neither does she. Lulu, her Q Glitter Lance bolts can no longer deal damage to the same target. Lux, her Q when it hits a second target, it does half damage. And her ultimate is now German again rather than Final Spark. Malphite, his W cleave is a passive and actively increases his damage. Malzahar W is an AoE area for a short period of time. Passive creates a Voidling after a number of casts, and his ultimate does not have the null zone around the target anymore. AP Master Yi is back. His E passive increases attack damage and is doubled when active. Passive is chance based. And his Q can no longer select where you end up popping out. Misfortune, her passive was moved from W. W passive now deals magic damage on hit, with active increasing attack speed and applying grievous wounds. Morgana, the Veiled Lady, doesn't change. Nasus, for his ultimate, magic damage temporarily converts a percentage into attack damage, and his Wither has attack speed slow. Nidalee, she no longer starts with a level in her ultimate. Her passive Prowl has Hunt passive removed. And Riot also put in specifically that W does insane damage, which, if anyone remembers old Nidalee, all her AP ratios were sort of insane. Nunu, his W grants attack and move speed. His E is a single point and click snowball. His Q can't target champions but gains buffs based on what's eaten. And his passive is that every 5 basic attacks his next spell costs no mana. Olaf, his W grants attack speed, lifesteal, and spell vamp. His E does not heal the health cost. Pantheon, his passive blocks damage after casting multiple times. His ultimate is a AoE circle. His E, he stands still and strikes. Rammus, his ultimate is a repeating AoE around him. All the other abilities are okay. Rise, Riot have stated, the abilities are completely different for the 5th time. Shaco, his ultimate clone explodes dealing more damage but doesn't spawn the boxes. And his W can be placed closer together. Singed, his passive gains health with mana. Sion, his abilities are completely different. He's a damage dealer, not a juggernaut. Severe, her W is a toggle and her E will gain mana instead of health when it blocks a spell. Skarner, his abilities are completely different. He's a bruiser and auto attacker, and his ultimate is a single target point and click. Sona, the auras of basic abilities are persistent. Passive does bonus damage, and her ultimate is wider. Soraka, the abilities are completely different apart from her ultimate. She can solo lane and has a point and click silence. Tarek, the abilities are completely different. He can solo lane and maybe jungle. Teemo, his ultimate don't bounce off each other. Tristana, her E is a dot ability. Trindamir's description was, "We were too scared of his rage to change him." Twisted Fate, they did this really old version of him. His E is a global teleport, and his ultimate is a global slow and reveal. His passive grants all allies and himself gold on kill. Twitch, his W is a AoE spell around him. His Q can last up to 50 seconds, and his E removes all the poison stacks on enemies. Vayne, her ultimate cannot be extended. Veigar, his Q is a point and click. His E cast is instant, and his passive gains increased mana regen based on missing mana. Warwick, the abilities are completely different, and his ultimate is a point and click suppress. Wukong, the Monkey King, his ultimate doesn't have the second cast, passive is slightly different, clone deals AP, doesn't mimic his abilities. Zillion, his Q is point and click, and his passive grants experience to his entire team. That's all the abilities of the 60 confirmed champions. Let me know, what are you excited to play, and which champions do you hope they add in the future? Anyway, that's it for this one. Until the next one.